I got all I want, and I got all I need, and I got everything. I got you and me. All I want, I got all I need.
Marriage is the best. Not everybody gets to go home to their husband or wife this week. Tragedy seems to be authoring our current chapter. There's been a lot of violence, school shootings, political assassination, and they seem to be striking at the heart of our country and the people that live here. There seems to be a huge rift forming, dividing one side from the other. It's been a heavy week. It's been painful. Some of the goings on over the last couple of weeks have been truly unfathomable. That was a word I kept using as Becca and I talked through different news stories that came through. And to be honest, it can get overwhelming at times. Our hearts really do go out to those who have lost people in the last couple of weeks, children, husband or wife. It just seems like, tragedy strikes most of our lives in different ways, in different forms, to varying degrees in different seasons. And in this season, it's just been a little extra. At least it's felt that way. I don't know if you had a heavy week, but we had a heavy week. In practice, I've worked with lots of widows, grievers, parents that have lost children to death or drugs or political, ideologies, and people who have lost parents to actually much of the same. Sitting with people who are in mourning, with those in grief, is actually one of the most profound pleasures of being a counselor. And I do genuinely feel very blessed to have the opportunity to serve many different people who are moving through a process of loss. This week, grief strikes deep at the heart of many a parent, a wife, and some children. And as I said, our hearts, prayers, thoughts, go out to those currently beginning the horrible journey of the losses and the potential losses, the potential futures. At some point I was thinking this week how lucky I am to get to just hold my kids. And that's not something that I think about every week. But knowing God and knowing that he is a great comforter and healer and that he shows up for those who mourn. So whether you are carrying your own grief, the grief of others, or the grief of our country or another, our hearts go out to you too. Because tragedy is a part of life, marriage and tragedy tend to run into each other quite often. Moving through the tragic with your partner tends to be both challenging and incredibly transformative. A kiln, if you will, that changes who we are with lots of heat. In marriage, tragedy can draw people to one another, or it can create such pressure that the vase shatters, never to be recovered. How we move through tragedy in marriage has much to do with the way that we structure our relationships before the tragedy strikes. So, setting up your marital system in order to be able to weather tragedy means maintaining a high balance of deposits and connection, not allowing small, difficult moments to turn into large rifts. Because those large rifts, when placed in the kiln, when put to heat, they blow up. They tend to grow. So guard your heart and mind from bitterness and resentment, because those cracks will show up big time when tragedy strikes. Simple things like 20 minutes a day of conversation adding up to 90 a week. Spending an hour a week dedicated to zero distractions and focused fun. Touching affectionately. Nights away, 1 to 2 times a year. Simple principles, right? Of time, effort, priority. Those things protect your marriage from breaking when life's tragedies inevitably strike. So remember to cherish your loved ones and don't allow these moments of history to pass by. Take them as an opportunity to further your intimacy with your children, with your spouse. That intimacy is one of the most precious things that we have access to here on earth. Intimacy with our spouses, kids, families. In one sense, that is what life is all about. It's been interesting this week because of everything going on in the world. It felt a little overwhelming to practice. And I don't usually feel that way as I'm counseling. I'm usually very much encouraged sitting in the chair and very much enjoying all of my clients that come in, being a part of their stories, encouraging them through. And it was interesting because not a lot of sessions did very many of the tragedies come up, mostly because so many of my clients were really dealing with their own stuff, what they were coming in for. And so I'm glad that it wasn't taking away from the work that they were doing and that I was able to kind of be present with them, but being present and heavy, bringing your own heaviness in, like we talked about a few weeks ago, like marriage counseling and counseling generally is really good when you're a clear reflection of the other person and you're not necessarily bringing in a lot from yourself. So the more that you're carrying, whether it be in trauma or just like stress of the day, maybe you've got a lot going on with kids, et cetera, the more that you're bringing into those moments, the harder it is to be clear for your client. And that's why, in part, self-care in counseling is actually such an important part of counseling. It sounds kind of phony. It sounds kind of weird. People talk about self-care all the time. And sometimes I feel like it kind of feels like a cop-out or just like this mamby-pamby, wimpy thing that only some people need. But no, I think literally just taking care of yourself is important, whether it be physically, mental health-wise, relationally, spiritually, whatever you're in need of at the time. Today's episode is a little shorter because not only of the heaviness of the week on our minds and spirits, but also on our bodies. This week has been really rough with just kids not feeling well and just trying to do our best to move through illness and sickness and whatever kind of bug thing was moving through our family. But I did want to talk a little bit about the tragedies. I wanted to talk a little bit about just how important it is for us to move through tragedy and be able to set up our marriage system in such a way that we can move through tragedy. So I hope that is an encouragement to you. I'm sorry, our episode is so short this week. We hope that it blesses you. If you want to hear anything specific or have us respond or react or anything, feel free to reach out. We would love to hear from you. If you wouldn't mind giving a 5-star review, both on Apple and Spotify, that would be super helpful so we can continue to spread and get the word out and encourage lots and lots more marriages. That would be awesome. There's some things going in the background. I feel like I say that pretty much every week. I don't know. Things move a little slower when it comes to developing the podcast and developing things because there's just so much chaos. So the amount of time, energy, effort, and focus available for the podcast and, moving the ball forward in these different elements and various areas that I would like to move the ball forward in, it sometimes just gets a little hairy, a little fuzzy to try and get all that done. So be blessed. Focus in on solidifying and strengthening and sustaining your marriage this week. And we'll catch you next week. This is the end.